Welcome back. We're looking at the way American society has been changing over the past few decades. Our guest, renowned pollster John Zogby, says the future looks bright. In his latest book, The Way We'll Be, he says the American dream is transforming. Let's get back to our discussion. And John, I'd like to kick off with an email that we got from a viewer called Molad Hilatif, who touched on the issue of the black-white divide. And he says, most US whites regard blacks as not one of us. They are actually more extreme than the Taliban. What about the so-called Bradley effect? What is it, and how will it materialize on election day?
Oh, let me back up, first of all, by denying the premise. The overwhelming majority of whites have come to grips with their racism and want to move forward. The Bradley effect, as you ask, is that notion that people might say I'm voting for a black candidate, but when they get behind the curtain and vote, that they actually will vote for a white candidate and not a black. They're afraid to tell a pollster otherwise. I honestly think, Riz, that there is no Bradley effect this year, or a very minimal one. I think that the polls during the primaries all got, by and large, Barack Obama's numbers. Where we fell down every once in a while was last-minute breaking support for Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary. But we knew those voters were not going to vote for Obama. It was a question of whether they were going to vote for Hillary or not vote at all. Right. I also point out that in 2006, Harold Ford, black candidate in Tennessee for the U.S. Senate, actually got more votes on Election Day than what polls showed. And so I'm doubtful that the Bradley effect exists.
There are two other factors here that we've touched on briefly, John, but just I want to get your impression on whether or not these have really been considered fully. One is the youth vote, and the other one's the African-American vote.
The African-American vote will, back in 2004, 89% voted for John Kerry. This year, we're looking at least 95% of the black vote going for Barack Obama, but also 95% of a much larger black vote turning out on Election Day. And that means you can add perhaps 2 points, almost 2 points to Barack Obama's percentage right there. In terms of the youth vote, young people right now are about 2-1 for Obama over McCain. And they have kept their market share of the electorate since 1992, 17–18% of the total. That makes the youth vote almost as large as the vote that's over 65. So if young people turn out to vote at 17 to 18% of the total, that means a much larger turnout of all in all of actual young voters advantage Obama on that one too. Okay.
Morocco on the line. We've got Abdullah calling us from Morocco. Go ahead, Abdullah.
Yes, I'm wondering why the whole world is blaming the United States for the financial crisis, and the world adopted the American system for the last 3 decades. The U.S. should not be blamed initially. Thank you.
John, your view on that?
That's a very good question. I am not an economist, but essentially, I think it's very easy to blame the bully on the block. I think it's very easy to blame the United States for everything, and a lot of that, to a large measure, is the United States having some wrong-headed policies, particularly in the region, but I think also in other parts of the world that suggest that that the world's ready to blame America for pretty much everything.
Now, John, of course, in the book you talk about what happened in previous recent elections, and an email we had from Sydney in Australia, Sonoma very kindly wrote into the show saying, with this comment, saying, if the US elections take the same turn as in 2000 and 2004, the US will prove to the world that their free and fair elections preaching on democracy is only rhetoric. Now, I know you talk about how younger Americans feel about those recent elections, and I wonder what kind of message this is sending out to the American electorate and perhaps to the world.
I get emails regularly from the Maldives wondering what's going on and citing the details of the polls. Everybody is watching this election. And, no system, Riz, to be honest, is built for close elections. When they're very, very close, a couple of thousand votes, tens of thousands of votes, then you see all of the problems within the system. When there are landslides, then it really doesn't matter. By and large, the system works. 2000 and 2004, two elections that were too close to call, and we did see, a heightened focus on all of the irregularities, and to be sure, there were irregularities.
Now, an email that came in from a viewer by the name of Abdinur sent us this comment. It says, Bush, who claims to be a warrior for America, has turned the economy inside out. McCain has now made the wrong VP choice with Sarah Palin. On that subject, it made me wonder what happened to the polls, and how did it, affect the polling as a factor when Sarah Palin came in out of the blue as a VP choice?
Well, initially, the Sarah Palin choice was a major benefit to John McCain, less to do with the fact that she was a woman, more to do with the fact, number one, she was a fresh face, and a fresh face that was announced within really a few hours of Barack Obama's electrifying speech at the Democratic Convention. So Sarah Palin overshadowed Barack Obama as a fresh face. But secondly, Sarah Palin's real value to the ticket was that she helped John McCain consolidate the support of conservatives, so that McCain emerged from the Republican convention with 91% support of Republicans, 92% support of conservatives. Now that was supposed to give McCain cover to run his campaign in the middle. The problem is that he's been off message and he's not made his shift to the middle. Whoever grabs the middle and wins in the middle wins this election. Right now, McCain is, as we say, on the ropes.
In the book, you make some interesting comments, John, about the effect and the impact on American people of negative campaigning, which we've seen a fair amount of certainly recently in the presidential race. And I want to get your perspective on how effective it really can be. What's the real story behind that?
Traditionally, the negative campaigning works because what it does is it dirties the water so much that it suppresses a vote for, if I can't get you to vote for my guy, I can at least stop you from voting for the other guy and not showing up to vote at all. But there's been plenty of evidence since 2006, and all during the primaries this year, and I believe also now in the last month, that whoever uses negative campaigning, whether it's in a speech or in advertising, actually it is backfiring. No one is gaining points from negative campaigning. And quite frankly, in the most recent sense, John McCain has had to back off his campaign from some of the negative advertising that's being used against Barack Obama. It isn't working. Obama leads in the polls.
Our next call's from the United Kingdom, and Denise is on the line. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to ask Mr. John about, what's going on with McCain, because he seems like he thinks he's only the American in the United States, and he's regarding the Obama as like someone from outside. And I followed, all the elections, American elections, and Obama, his father is Kenyan, okay, but his mother is, his mother is American.
And actually, you mentioned about how valuable it is to have that mix now, don't you, John?
Yeah, I do. In fact, this is a very stark choice this year, Denise. On one hand, you have an internationalist in terms of foreign policy, and Barack Obama, of course, and someone who demographically is an internationalist with great support among young people. On the other hand, skip 2 generations back, and you have John McCain, who represents an older America, an older sense of patriotism and sacrifice and duty, who says our values, American values, are superior. Why? Because everybody wants to be like us. He's a nationalist and an old-fashioned patriot with great support among older voters. That's the stark choice this year. Neither one is a perfect guy, and neither one really is a bad guy. They represent 2 different definitions of America.
John, with just a minute to go, are we seeing basically the legacy of George W. Bush? So basically, the chicken's coming home to roost when it comes to this election. Are we seeing the legacy manifesting itself in the election, the final stages of the election campaigning?
You know, we could, but the bottom line is George W. Bush is not on the ballot. To the degree that John McCain is boxed into a corner and himself represents a continuation of George W. Bush, that's a loser right there. But if John McCain can break out of this and be an agent for change, conservative, middle of the road change, but change nonetheless, he has a chance. But to run with Bush is a loser.
All right, well, John, I'm on your mailing list, so I'm going to keep an eye on the polls and the information you send us. Thank you very much for that.
Hey, Riz, what a pleasure. Thank you.
Great talking with you. There's John Zogby of Zogby International and Zogby Interactive joining us there. Now, thank you for being with us. On tomorrow's show, the UK's foremost spin doctor, Max Clifford, joins us to discuss how public relations can be used to blur the lines of reality. That's it from me and the team, and we'll see you next time.